Hello and welcome to our first episode of Inspiring Leaders, where I talk to the most successful and influential people and learn from their stories, their insights, and experiences. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing Larry Johnson, the former CEO of a London stock-listed company. Larry has had an amazing journey from humble beginnings to becoming one of the most respected and admired business leaders in his industry. He has helped lead companies through many challenges and opportunities and has left a lasting impact on industries, employees, and communities. Larry, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sure our viewers are eager to hear your story and learn from your wisdom. Welcome to Opportunity, Success, and Wealth.
Well, thank you for inviting me today. It's a pleasure, and I look forward to sharing my journey.
Without further ado, please take us through your journey right from the beginning.
I would love to. Thank you so much. So when you start talking about the humble beginnings, it goes all the way back to being a simple farm boy. I mean, I grew up on a farm way out in the country. Closest neighbor was 10 miles. And my upbringing by my parents, I was the oldest in the family. And growing up on a farm and being the oldest, I had a lot of responsibility at a very young age. There was no sitting around watching television. A lot of times I would feel kind of jealous sometimes because my friends would be out enjoying lots of things and I'm milking the cows or whatever it might be. I also played sports. I was a decent athlete, and that sports side taught me competitiveness, which is key as you come up through your careers, whatever they may be, and wherever you stop. And plus on the farm, you have no option because those animals are relying on you. And that's your food, that's your intake, that's how you're going to survive. There was no going on vacation or any of those things that a lot of people have. So my parents could not afford any type of schooling after high school. So I knew I had to commit to something because that was taught to me. Whatever you're doing, commit. Even in sports, if I started a sport, even if I didn't like it, I had to finish it. That's just the way I was raised. And so I ended up choosing the military to go into because at that time they would pay for your schooling when you got out, or you could use it to buy a home. There was different paths you could take. And I also knew that I would just continue to learn leadership because on a farm you have to be a leader because you have so much responsibility, and your parents are not going to follow you around making sure you're doing everything right. They train you, then you're off.
Right.
And so when I got in the military, I was, again, very competitive. And so at a very young age of 19, I became a non-commissioned officer. I always had this drive, this energy inside of me to go for whatever was in front of me. And then the next thing you know, at a very young age, you've got 300 plus troops reporting to you. And you're looking at yourself thinking, am I really ready for this? But it's a life and death situation, so you drive on. From there, I continued my career in the military. I learned a lot. I learned so much about leadership. And so I stayed in the military for some years, and then I felt the urge to go discover who am I besides doing this. And so I got out of the military, I got married. Obviously at that point you're like, I need to get a really good job and make some good money so I can raise this family. I took on school because I knew if I was going to go anywhere, I had to have some schooling behind. So I ended up going to work for a manufacturing company. They were New York Stock Exchange listed. And I went in there thinking, geez, I was a non-commissioned officer, in the military. I should just be able to transition into some senior role, right? Bad mistake. That was my first tough battle that I reached in the civilian world, is it doesn't work like that. I was still very young, and people back then looked at you like, you're too young to have any kind of senior role, so you're just going to do this. And so I went through a lot of different jobs in the beginning because I knew if I'm going to take a senior role eventually, I'm just going to go learn all these different jobs. So I would fire through all kinds of jobs, and it was actually a piecework environment. So the faster you went, the more money you made. And I learned all the various jobs, and finally somebody recognized the efforts and the hard work that I put in. And I learned, again, by my upbringing, don't complain, just do. So I continued to move along, and finally I was able to get what I call a basic floor supervisor job. So I was pretty excited about that, and I had let all the emotion go that I'm not going to be a senior person for however long. I started school, went into engineering school, and I went to the engineering path in a different route. I'm not a very good classroom sitting type person because I'm very hyper by nature. And so, I ended up taking double the time to finish school because I'm raising 2 young children at night. And so that balancing, I was able to do it because of my upbringing and growing up on a farm, plus going to school and playing sports. So all that continued to allow me to balance that lifestyle.
Right.
And owned my first business actually with a partner of mine at a very young age. It was a machine shop. I didn't know anything about machining, but I just knew that I needed to own a business. So him and I put all we had into the business. We walked into a very good environment where we bought a whole shop out. Someone's misfortune became our fortunate situation. They had lost their shop because of finance issues. We were able to get the entire shop for very little money. And we put it in a barn actually to start with. So here I was, going to work, raising my kids, studying, and now I got this business. This drive inside me was enough to continue to push me. Plus, I knew the importance, as my parents did for me, to be an example for my children. I wanted to let them see that toughness, effort, drive, what you put in is what you're going to get out. I've taught that my entire careers. And so from there, I continued to work and have various jobs. I continued to move up the ladder, as they say. But unfortunately, that company, being stock listed, was involved in a hostile takeover. When that happened, they approached me to move to a whole different country. Well, obviously I had young children, I couldn't do that. But my fortunate part is I had been traveling all over the world, troubleshooting equipment, repairing, buying equipment. So I met a lot of people along the way. And somebody was paying attention out there to my drive, and I got a phone call. It was from a competitor, actually. And I jumped on an airplane, flew down to the interview, and so I transitioned. I had to move, which was a very tough thing to do because I had basically been in the same state and area my whole life, except for the military portion. But I up and transitioned, and I came into a company that was smaller than the one I left, which was tough, but I had the right manager because it was the type of individual let me think outside the box. They let me create to grow that company, which is exactly the area that I always wanted to get in that lane because I always thought that way. So I took that particular area and grew it. It was actually ended up being, I hired the right staff. I hired people with the same drive as me. I didn't always hire the sharpest technical person, maybe, because I was a technical manager, but I hired people that had enough technical and they had vision. And they had the drive to take this to another level. And we ended up taking that company to #1 in the world by the time I retired. And I couldn't have done it without surrounding myself with lots of different type cultures and individuals as I went along. And again, traveling on a global basis, I learned very early that, you know, you have to humble yourself when you walk into another country. You can't walk in there thinking you own it. And then when you present yourself like that, it's amazing how people respond in a positive way. Because they want you to understand their real country, their culture. They don't want to necessarily know yours. So I continued to move along the ladder in that company. And I basically knew in my mid-20s that I wanted to become a CEO of some company, whether it was going to be my own or another company. And so as I continued to work in that manufacturing company, I took every certification they would throw at me. I went after every position that would matter. And when you become a CEO, you don't have to necessarily be the smartest person in any particular area, but you have to have a well-rounded knowledge, because you're going to be listening to presentations or data coming at you. And you've got to be able to gather that and make decisions very quickly a lot of times, especially in a publicly listed company, because your investors are counting on you. And so I worked in finance, I worked in procurement, I ran supply chains, I technically managed several different departments, and I basically got to a point in my life at that time where I spent 20 plus years in that company, where I felt like I'm ready, and I'm ready for that next transition. Because I always felt, even from the military, that if you're going to lead troops or you're going to lead people, and they're going to get behind you in whatever the task may be, they need to feel that you understand them, like what you're really asking them to do. Sometimes throughout my career, my bosses weren't very happy with me at times, because they're like, why are you doing that? You don't have to do all that. You're the manager. But I said, but that's me, you know, and people would follow me through thick and thin. I actually became a world leader in a specific mineral, which we'll leave quiet. And so I had done some serious speaking at different events about the particular items, and somebody recognized that along the way. So I received a phone call, and that phone call was very pivotal for me, because it was that magic word that I had been driving for. They asked me if I would become a CEO, and I was so honored. I get goosebumps even thinking about it today. It's a long journey. It's a tough one. Even though leaving the company I was at, it was tough, because you spend 20 plus years with people every day. They become like family to you. But I knew that it was time. It was my time. And the interesting thing is, once I accepted that position, they asked me some very fundamental questions. So I assume you want to live in London. I'm like, no, I don't want to live in London. We assume you want to live over in this country. No, I don't want to live in that place. Where do you want to live, Mr. Johnson? I said, at the process. They thought I was crazy. They're like, why would you want to go in the middle of no place at a mining operation? I said, because that's where the money is. That's where it's going to be going. I need to understand that process from A to Z, or A to Z for you Americans. And I said, the only way I'm going to pull that off is live there. And I said, plus, what I did in the military, there's a reason for that. So they said, fair enough. So I took the job. I get a phone call from the chairman. He says, I need you on an airplane. I said, but I've only been here for a few days. He said, I don't care. I need you on an airplane. You got to come to London and meet all these investors and raise some money. And I did say, Lord, the only way I'm going to get through this is with you. And so I went to all the supervisors that were currently at the operation, and I said, nobody's sleeping tonight, including me. We're going to power through a bunch, put some slides together. So again, putting that same effect by saying, I'm here with you. It counts. And so we put a bunch of slides together. I jumped on the airplane. So we get to the office. I walk in a room. Never met these people in my life. I had PR teams, I had all kinds of people there. Because again, this is a stock listed company. And even though I had worked for stock listed, I never was a CEO in my life, right? But I said, it's okay, because I've prepared my whole life, for this moment. So we sat down, we powered through, we put a bunch of slides together and built a book. And it was a long day, and they said, so we're gonna get the driver to take you back to your room. You can get a good night's rest. I said, I don't have time for that. They said, what? I said, be by your phones. I might have some questions, but I'm gonna go study. I went back to my room, and I might have slept 3 hours, and I studied from A to Z again, A to Z, everything in those slides. And the beauty is, and something to share with the audience, don't try to fake your information. Put the right information that you know, that you can always go back to.
Yeah.
Don't make up a story, because you'll forget that story. You tell the truth, it'll always set you free. So everything in that book, and we had lots of back and forth disputes on what would be in the book, but that's when I said, but I am the CEO now. I can make sure that what's in that book is something that I can get behind. So we finished it, and my first meeting the next morning was with very wealthy executives from all different companies that were investors that were expecting me to tell them the positive story to be able to invest in this company. And let me tell you something, mining doesn't always have a favorable effect, even though we're an investment firm. So the chairman had done a little trick, but again, I'd been through lots of tricks in my life. So I looked at this as like, this is an interview, it's just another interview for another position. And so he inserted his brother in those people that sat at that table. They pinned me in the back of the room, so I couldn't go anywhere, right? And they drilled me, and especially his brother. I thought, this guy's very annoying. But being competitive as I am, all that did for me was make me stronger. If you push me, it just makes me stronger. It builds my confidence even more. So I slid the book to the side, didn't even open it, and just fired through the questions. And when it was all said and done, I got up from the table. They were very excited. They were actually amazed that I never touched that book. And I got outside, and this individual who I thought was a real pain came up, and he was laughing. I said, is there something funny? Did I miss something? Because that was quite intense. He said, I'm actually the brother of your chairman. I said, oh my God. And the chairman got me on the telephone. He was laughing. He said, you're it. He said, you did good. He said, I had to do something like that to make sure you're the one. Because he said, we are listed, and it's serious. And I said, I get that. And so from there, I put my nose to the grind. I went back to the operations, and I went out and literally did every single job in that operation. If I'm going to lead these people, they got to believe in me. They got to know that I'm going to be right there with a shovel, a wheelbarrow, whatever it's going to take to get this done. This operation had been there since the 1940s and never shipped nothing. And so I knew we had a heck of a task ahead of us. So in the very end of that career, I spent some good years there. We were able to open up multiple mines in different countries, different operations, and I never changed my approach. I always was hands-on in the whole time. And it's paid off, because even to this day, and I've been retired now for some years, but to this day, many of those people still reach out to me on WhatsApp. Wish me happy birthdays. I wish them happy birthdays. I stay in touch with the families. And that's special, because again, you have people that commit their lives. You're spending, a good portion of your life working away from your family. So anyway, in short, that was the journey.
Very interesting. Thank you for that piece. What are some of the most interesting or challenging projects or tasks that you have worked on or contributed to in your field?
So some of the most interesting things that was the people I met around the world I found to be so interesting and amazing. I mean, I love social impact type projects because that is lifelong. That's something you can look back on and tell your grandchildren or your kids. But social type impacts were something that always kept me going, kept me driving. That's why I guess I enjoyed being in so many different places. And even when I'd travel a different country in senior positions, they would always want to go have dinner at the nice restaurants, and I'd go one night, right? But the rest of the time I was in the street with the people because I wanted to get to know, what is this really like? What is this country really like? So I'm going to say that was my favorite. I'm going to say the toughest challenge for me was when you have to let people go, when you have to retrench somebody or lay them off, as they say in the United States. I got to tell you, I had to do that in several positions along the way. And actually, when I took over the first operation as CEO, I had to wipe the company almost clean and start over because there was people put in the wrong positions. They were the wrong people. You know, it always hit me hard because I knew that when I let that individual go, that had such a domino effect with so many people within the family.
Oh, yeah.
And you lose a lot of sleep. You can't show it. You know, when you're out there and in the mix of things, when you're around investors or whatever it might be, you got to be tough. But when you get back to your quiet space, you can have some meltdowns at times. That's for sure.
Wow, Larry, that was an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and for being so honest and authentic. You have inspired me, and I'm sure many of our viewers as well. You have shown that anything is possible, no matter where you come from, no matter what your challenges are. You have proven that success is not a destination, but a journey of learning, growing, and giving back. You have reminded us that we all have the potential to achieve greatness at our own pace and in our own way. You are a true leader and a role model for us all. Thank you so much. Any last words for our viewers?
You know, I would just say to the viewers, be steadfast. Mm-hmm. Don't be so quick to assume that the spot you're in right now is the forever spot. Mistakes are normal. Mm-hmm. I've made many in my careers. I always used to teach people, though, mistakes are okay. Just don't try to repeat the same ones over and over. Mm-hmm. And keep your eye on the target. And don't listen to the naysayers, because there's lots of them out there. There's more naysayers than encouragers. Mm. And always, always know that you matter. And as long as you keep that in, nothing will stop you from the journey.
This is true. Thank you so much for that, Larry. That is very inspiring. But before I close, I want to share with you some Bible verses that have inspired me. And these verses remind us of God's love, wisdom, and power, and encourage us to trust Him, seek Him, and follow His will in our lives. The verse that I'm going to read is Joshua 1 verse 9, and it reads, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." This verse teaches us that we are not alone in our battles and that we have a protector who is always by our side. God is our Father and He loves us more than we can ever imagine. He's our defender and He fights for us. He's our helper. He supports us. He's with us wherever we go, and He will never leave us nor forsake us. Once again, thank you so much, Larry, for joining me today. It was an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. To our viewers, thank you, our dear viewers, for watching our first episode of Inspiring Leaders. I hope you have enjoyed it and learned something valuable. Until next time, stay inspired and keep pursuing your dreams. Thank you so much. God bless.